The second part of this session, we are going to talk about the weight. First of all, let's define the weight. Weight is the gravitational pull by which the object is attracted to the earth, or the gravitational pull by which the object is attracted to the planet which exists. The rule of the weight at any place, at any planet, at any celestial body, weight equals mass in kilogram times the gravitational pull of the planet. On Earth, the weight on the Earth equals the mass of the object in kilogram times the gravitational G of Earth, or the gravitational pull of the Earth. Earth attracts the mass of an object when the mass is equal 1 kilogram. The Earth attracts 1 kilogram by 10 Newton. You can consider it as 10. Actually, the G of the Earth equal 9.8 of Earth equals 9.8 Newton per kilogram. The G of the Earth, or the acceleration of the Earth, equals 9.8 Newton per kilogram. You can consider it as 10 if you do not given, if this value is not given in the problem. You can consider G of Earth 10 newtons per kilogram. Okay, we can draw a triangle to calculate the weight of the object. Weight on Earth, for example, equals mass in kilogram times G of Earth, because we talk about the weight on the Earth. So we have to multiply the mass by the gravitational pull on the Earth. This is a triangle. If you want to calculate the weight on the Earth, you have to multiply the mass in kilogram times G on Earth. If you want to find the mass of the object in kilogram, you have to divide the weight on Earth by the G on Earth. Okay, and the last one, of course, G on Earth. We can find the G on Earth by a division of weight on Earth divided by mass in kilogram. This is the rules that you are going to use. The most important rules: weight on the Earth, and also how can you calculate the weight from the mass. This is the rules that we are going to use. Okay, also we have another rule, the weight on the moon. How can you calculate the weight on the moon. The gravitational pull of the moon equals 1/6 from the gravitational pull on the earth, or in another meaning, the weight on the moon equals 1/6 from the weight on the earth, or the weight on the earth equals 6 times the weight on the moon. So we can calculate the weight on the moon by finding the weight on earth and divided it by 6, because the weight on the earth bigger than the weight on the moon, or equals 6 times the weight on the moon, or the weight on the moon is smaller than the weight on the earth by 6 times. Okay, let's start with a small example. By the way, before starting, you have to remember that there is a big differences between the mass and the weight. The mass means the amount of matter in an object. It means how many grams that made up the object from the different materials that made the object. For example, if you talk about a car, if you said this car has a mass of 500 kilograms, that means we are talking about the materials that made this car. How many kilograms of metals, how many kilograms of glass, how many kilograms of rubber, and the whole materials that made this car. But the weight measured the attraction force by which the earth attracts the object to its surface. Let's start with a small example. Imagine you have an object, its mass equals 20 kilogram, and we want to find its weight on earth and also its weight on moon. First step, number 1, you have to write the rules that you are going to work with. The weight on earth equals mass in kilogram times the gravitational pull on the earth. This is the first mark. The second mark for the replacement. Weight on earth equals the mass, you are given the mass 20 kilograms. Remember, the mass should be in kilograms, not in grams. If you are given the mass in grams, you have to divide the mass by grams, divide the mass in grams by 1000 to get the mass by the kilogram. This is something very important. So 20 kilograms times G of the earth, we can consider G of the earth as 10. So the weight on the earth equals 20 times 10 equals 200 Newton. The second mark for the replacement, you put the correct values of the mass and the G. And the third mark for putting the result with the measuring unit. Do not forget the measuring unit. The measuring unit is something very important. The second part is how to calculate the weight on the moon. After calculating the weight on the earth, we have to use this rule. Weight on moon equals weight on earth divided by 6. Okay, so we got the weight on the earth, which is 200 newtons, divided by 6. So the answer will be 33.3 Newton. Okay, if the question asked you what is the mass of the object on the moon, remember the mass doesn't change by changing the place. The mass doesn't change by changing the place. The mass is a constant value. The mass of the earth 20 kilograms. Also the mass on the moon equals 20 kilograms. The mass doesn't change by changing the planets. Remember, the mass, it's the amount of matter in an object. It doesn't change by changing the place, but the weight, that can change by changing the planet or the place. And this is the second part, the weight. Thank you.